What's up, Fantasy World? Welcome to another episode of Fantasy's Finest podcast. I'm your host, William Spencer, alongside Jalen McQueen. Say what's up, man.
What's up, peoples?
In this episode, we'll be going over our early rankings for our running backs heading into the 2019 fantasy draft. We're doing 11 through 20. We've already given you 1 through 10. In our last episode, we even talked about it on Twitter. I also want to say a thank you to all the people that participated in that thread. That thread was hilarious, to say the least. So, just wanted to say thank you to all the followers that participated in that thread. They gave their opinions on our rankings from 1 through 10. We really appreciated it. As always, before we get into our episode, subscribe to the podcast, share it with your friends and leagues. You can also follow us across all our social media platforms on IG and Twitter at Fantasy's Finest. You can like our page on Facebook at Fantasy's Finest. You can also follow me on Twitter at IamHyperion_FPH. You can follow Jalen on Twitter as well at Ace_GameTime215. Also, make sure you go and check out our blog at fantasysfinest.wordpress.com. Show us some love there. Follow the blog. We appreciate all the love and feedback that we get. Before we get into the meat of our episode today, let's go into the news and see what's going on around the NFL. All right, first up, this is breaking news. As I was setting up today to do this podcast, this is kind of big for our division. Carson Wentz got a 4-year extension worth $145 million, $128 million with 107 fully guaranteed. Think that's a good deal for him?
I think it's a good deal. I think Carson deserved it. Going back to 17, look at if he don't get hurt, then he was MVP, and possibly, all capital letters, would have led his team to the Super Bowl. Then you look at last year. I don't use the injury excuse card, but he played in through those 11 games, 21 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. Really good. But he did also go 5-6. So I think with Carson, you can see that he is an NFL quarterback. He's definitely a franchise quarterback, but I think the biggest question is, can he lead the team into the playoffs? We still haven't seen him in the playoffs. That's number one. Number two, Carson has the tendency to look like a deer in headlights under pressure, and just like Dak, he holds the ball a little bit too long. But I can see what the Eagles were thinking. Definitely is a franchise quarterback. I think going into the future, that he will be really good with the Eagles. We just need to see if Carson can get back to 2017.
I kind of agree. I'm actually shocked he didn't get a little bit more, uh, based on the fact that, like you said, he had an almost MVP year. I have to say that he probably would have did a lot better than Foles in the playoffs against the Falcons. Maybe not as much against Minnesota because you saw what the Eagles did to them. But I think he would have put up more of a fight against Atlanta than Nick Foles did. And when you look at how well Wentz was running the offense in 2017, I know you're not going to pay a guy just based off 1 year, but that, you have to be honest, that year was spectacular for Carson Wentz. Last season, he looked a little iffy. He was coming back from injury. He looked a little shaky. He was shaking off some rust for a couple of games, but his stats to end the season before he got hurt, they weren't bad, and he had over 100 point passer rating. So Carson's legit in the passing game. I think that helps. So I thought he was going to get a little bit more, but that's a good deal for him. Now we had to have a little response. So DeMarcus Lawrence responded via Twitter. He said, "The richer they get, the better it feels when we humble they ass." I'm like, if I'm a Cowboys fan, that's exact. Well, I am a Cowboys fan, but you get what I'm saying. That's what I want to see out of my defensive lineman. That's the big guy that we just paid. I want to see him. That's what I want to see. I want to see him out there like, yo, this boy getting paid. That's all right. We're about to put him on his back pockets this season.
Am I allowed to go?
Mm-hmm.
I hated the tweet from DeMarcus Lawrence. Number one, as a Cowboys fan, I'm tired of tired of the talk, tired of DeMarcus Lawrence talking so much. Go out there and play, because when you play against the Eagles, you don't got no sacks. In your say with how long he's been in the league, have to be 5 years. In his 5 years, he has no sacks. He hasn't touched Carson Wentz one time. And so how did he tweet that right there? How?
See, why you gotta be such a Debbie Downer?
I was just saying this, and just want to throw this out there. We definitely do love all our Twitter followers, because we get a lot of responses. We want to keep that going. But one thing I will say about this situation is Carson got paid basically elite money. What's that, 32 mil a year? I want to say here that Marcus Lawrence wasn't worth any of the money he got from him.
What?
And I'm about to explain it. And y'all know, y'all been listening to Fantasy's Finest, that I don't care about how I react to this. I'm going to explain why I said exactly that. So, Will, ask me how many sacks Marcus Lawrence had last year.
How many sacks did DeMarcus Lawrence have last year?
10 and a half, right? 3 of those sacks came against the Lions. 2 came against the Giants in both games against the Giants. So, out of that Giants game that you know, with their horrible O line, right? That we literally mock day in and day out. You are only you only got 1 sack a game on that offensive line. Are you serious right now? Let's not just stop there. You had 3 sacks against Lions. You take that away, you only have 7 sacks on a year. Got paid like he's elite. He's nowhere near elite. You look at Joey Bosa, you look at AJ Watt, you look at Clowney, you look at Mack, you look at Vaughn. Where's Tank on that list? So for you to have the audacity to tweet at Carson getting paid like you deserved any of the money that you got, come on, bro. And then I just want to say one last thing. DeMarcus Lawrence, you tweeted, the richer they get, the better it feels when we humble them, right? That tweet applies to you. Shut up. Go out there and get me 1 sack against the Eagles, which you haven't done in 5 years. Stop talking so much. Goodness gracious.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna save my rebuttal for Twitter. I'm gonna handle you there because if we get into this, we're gonna be all day. The podcast gonna run. We're gonna run out of time talking about this. So I'm gonna handle my rebuttal to you on Twitter. So y'all stay tuned for that. In other news, NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport reports that it is an understanding in LA that Todd Gurley will no longer be the bell cow back. Right now, Gurley is still rehabbing from his knee injury from last season. He's attempting to lose weight. He's trying to drop down to 218 to lighten the load on his knee. You know that the Rams have drafted Darrell Henderson in the third round. So it kind of seems like this is actually happening this season. What do you think?
Well, after all the backlash that we received on Twitter for me having Todd Gurley number one, looks like he is going to be removed from that top spot. I gotta figure out a way to place him in his top 20, but I don't think that he'll be removed from that bell cow spot. I just think right now they're being cautious with it. I think he'll still go through the season as Todd Gurley, but now is the worst time because CJ Anderson's gone. So they definitely have some stuff to figure out. We'll see how that works.
But the things that they've done in this offseason kind of they kind of give you a window into what the Rams are secretly trying to do. They've kept Malcolm Brown. They moved up to draft Darrell Henderson, and they got a couple guys still on the team. But with this news coming out about Todd Gurley, it's more or less saying that they really are planning to not move away from Todd Gurley, but just to spread the ball out a little bit more. They have legit wide receivers so they can spread the ball out and ease up on using Todd Gurley the way that they have. Now that you have Darrell Henderson in your backfield too, and he's a pretty decent pass catcher, so now you have another guy that you can work into that offense that'll help ease the burden on Todd Gurley. In other news, Benjamin Watson was suspended for the first 4 games of the regular season for violating the league's PED policy. Apparently, when he retired, he started taking treatments to help his body rejuvenate and recover from the rigors of the NFL season. He wasn't planning to come back, but he started to get offers from teams trying to lure him out of retirement. He ended up picking one of the offers from the Patriots, but he had to let them know that he was taking treatments, supplements that would be considered a banned item on under the PED policy from the NFL. So the team that he ended up picking, of course, was the Patriots. They knew that he was going to get suspended for 4 games. Do you think that this will hinder the Patriots' offense heading into the season? Because I got more news uh, for the Patriots coming up too.
I don't think so, and I guess I don't think so. I mean, if it was such a big deal, then they wouldn't have released Safari Jenkins, which is what you're talking about.
Oh, you're ruining the surprise.
I mean, but you might as well get it all out the way. If it was a big deal, I don't think they would have cut him. I tell you, to the very first episode, what goes up, Nikhil Harry. His stock will rise because of this. This is not really huge. It's Tom Brady. Tom Brady can make anybody good. I mean, I'm surprised it's even made the news, to be honest.
Well, speaking of your boy Nikhil Harry, he actually got first team reps heading into the first day of camp. So you must be on to something.
I am. I told you.
And finally, Broncos running back Philip Lindsay should be ready for training camp per Vic Fangio. Lindsay injured his wrist last season against the Oakland Raiders, and he's been recovering from that injury ever since. I still think that Philip Lindsay is good, but I had my chips placed on Royce Freeman. I really wanted him to take off last season, but instead Philip Lindsay blew up.
I don't. I'm interested actually to see what Philip Lindsay does this season. Because right now I don't even have him top 20. He's just too injury prone for me to put him up there. But I gotta see exactly, how it goes this season, and then I don't know. Maybe we'll see. But as for right now, I have same thing with Emmanuel Sanders. I gotta see exactly what they do this season. But I can say if he does play to Philip Lindsay of old, then that could turn out to be a steal through fantasy. So I say keep your eyes on that news.
I have to agree. Well, that wraps it up for our news segment. Now let's get into our rankings 11 through 20 for our early running back rankings heading into the 2019 NFL Fantasy Draft. All right. So we already did our 1 through 10. I think my rankings was a bit better than yours per Twitter. Uh, so what we'll do is we'll start from 11 through 20. And what we'll do is we'll give the number and then we'll give the person who we have slotted in that number and why. That sound good?
I guess so. Why don't you go ahead and start us off? Get
I
it over
will.
with.
You don't sound too confident.
I
All right.
mean, I am, but at the same time, at this point, you just never know. You just never know.
All right. So for me, coming in at number 11, I have Joe Mixon. Now, a lot of people are hype on Joe Mixon coming into this season, but rightfully so. He had 235 carries last season. That ranked eighth among running backs. He's a versatile running back that can do damage on the ground and damage through the air. Andy Dalton seems to be comfortable with him. They've made upgrades to the offensive line. He looks like a guy that if he can stay healthy and not get nicked up during the season, he could probably push for top 10. Like I said, I have
Mm.
him just outside the top 10. But I think if he can stay healthy through the whole season, he could definitely be he could definitely crack the top 10.
Okay, so I have is Marlon Mack ended the year. Although he played 12 games, he ended the year with the Colts phenomenally. He only played 12 games, but he did. I believe he ended the year with what's that? 900 rushing yards, 9 TDs, almost average 5 yards a pop. Um, I think most definitely he. I have him right outside the top 10. I was even thinking about putting him into the top 10. I think he'll be a huge pick if you don't get anybody within that top 10. If you get to like the second or third round, you're still looking for a running back, I would definitely take Marlon Mack, especially because Andrew's luck passing, his passing ability, the way they run their offense. I feel like Marlon Mack is a steal going into next season.
I actually have Marlon Mack ranked 12th in my
Wow.
ranking.
Wow.
Reason being is because he can do damage on the ground, but he doesn't get enough targets in that offense. I think he can get a little bit more. They should probably bump him up over a full 16 game season. But the thing you have to worry about with him is that Naeem Hines is back there, and he's basically their pass catching back for the Colts. Marlon Mack has shown that he's versatile enough that he can be a good passer, when they drafted Naeem Hines and then they used him the way they did last season, it kind of tells me that they want to use Marlon Mack more so on the ground and use Naeem Hines in through the air to further that passing attack.
I agree, but when you look through that offense, I don't think no, they don't really even really pass. Like, how often does Andrew Luck pass to running backs? I mean, he hardly does it. You just talk about bell cow with Todd Gurley. He definitely is a bell cow, and I think that alone will help. Of course, help the Colts in the run game. Their offensive line has gotten even better. I don't even think he needs the targets or the same targets as those other 10 in in our top 10. But he's an every down back.
Yeah, I totally agree. I definitely think Marlon Mack is an every down back. He just got to stay healthy. He can't those soft tissue injuries, the the hamstrings and all that stuff. He's got to work through that somehow. Because if
That's
he
true.
if he can, he's another one that has the potential because of the offense that he's in to be able to crack the top 10. Because who's going to get all those goal line looks outside if you're not passing the ball? Marlon Mack is going to get those. He's going to get those touches in the red zone.
Right.
I actually have his ranking for his red zone touches. He had 39 last season, which ranked 10th among running backs. So that's you see where he's getting the uses. He's in the top 10 in red zone touches. I want to jump back to Joe Mixon real quick. Joe Mixon, I think his numbers for the red zone are going to be up if he can stay healthy as well. That's why I think that he'll have a better potential at number 11 than Marlon Mack would because he has 37 red zone touches. They rank 12th, so they're very close to each other. But I think the Bengals kind of lean a little bit more towards the run, just watching the games. But
Mm-hmm.
like I said, if either one of these guys, you could probably flip flop them back at 11 and 12 and be fine with whoever you select, and it'll be good. I think, but Joe Mixon gets the edge for me because he's used more in the passing game than Marlon Mack is. So I already gave you my 12. Who do you have marked for? Who you have coming in at number 12?
Okay, so this may cause a little bit of controversy per Twitter, but I actually have Leonard Fournette. Um,
Ooh.
and I'm gonna tell you why. Because I think with last year, teams, the same thing that happened to the Cowboys last year, teams were stacking the box against them because of Blake Bortles. They had no passing threat. Although they got DJ Chark, they had what's the other D.D. Westbrook. It was relatively easy to stop them because you have no. You don't have a QB that can throw the ball down the field, get to those open receivers. But I think with the addition of Nick Foles, I think that's going to be huge for the Jaguars, and I think that's going to open up so much space for Leonard Fournette to get those big plays, get those yards. I think I'm going to see a huge season from Leonard Fournette. I'm talking about 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns at least.
I wish I could be as optimistic as you, but last year, between him being injured, missing all of that time,
Yep.
and then coming back and then getting suspended, like he does have the potential to be a top tier running back. He's just a he's a knucklehead and he's injury prone. So it's like you can't have both of those things. I have him ranked. I do have him ranked in the top 20, but I don't have him nearly as high as you do. I do believe in that upside, but the injuries that he's had, the amount of time he's missed, it's just too big of a risk to take him that early in the draft. If I could get him as a RB2, a lower end RB2, I'd be fine with that. Like if we're going into the late in the third round, or if he slides because people are scared to pick him because of the injury history, and I can snake him as a 3, that would be
Right.
golden. It's not likely because you're going into the third and fourth round. Leonard Fournette probably not making it past the fourth round. But if
All
he's
right.
there, yeah, I'll take him. But I can't take him early. I can't.
I, I mean, like you said, I am extremely optimistic, and this is like no bias. It's not like I'm a real big fan of him, but I do think Nick Foles will open up that the field for Leonard Fournette. And if I'm right, you're gonna have a big season.
We'll see. Too rich for my blood. All right, coming in at number 13, I have Devonta Freeman. Now
Mm,
he had injuries last year too. He only played 2 games last season before being knocked down with groin and knee injuries, but he's fully recovered. He's fully healthy and he's ready to go for the Atlanta Falcons. One thing I like about Devontae Freeman is that when you look at the backfield, there's nobody back there to take a real big chunk out of his carries. Edo Smith, he doesn't seem like he's going to threaten Devontae Freeman for targets and carries as big as maybe Tevin Coleman would. And Tevin Coleman's gone. He's in San Fran now. So
right,
basically, the backfield belongs to Devonta Freeman. He because he got hurt last season, you couldn't really use his numbers since he only played 2 games. So I went back to 2017. He had
hmm
196 carries. He was ranked 20th, 47 targets, was ranked 23rd among running backs. But he had 39 red zone touches, was ranked 11th for running backs, and he finished 13th in standard and 14th in PPR. So he's on the cusp. If he can get more of those carries that he had to split with Telvin Coleman, I think that's where the value comes in getting a guy like Devontae Freeman. And
right,
I think his injuries are more, I would say, aggressive than say a Leonard Fournette, but they're not really soft tissue issues. Like
right,
Leonard Fournette was hamstrings. Devontae Freeman had he had concussions and he had the groin injury. That's done now, you know, as far as his injuries go. Leonard Fournette, he could pop his hammy running 70 yards in one game and then be out for the next 5 weeks. So I would rather take the risk on Devonta Freeman as the 13th running back coming off the board than I would say a Leonard Fournette.
okay. And with my 13th, I have I have Sony Michelle.
Ooh,
Yeah, I got him pretty high. Um, he produced well for Bill Belichick and the Patriots last year. Patriots are never going to have that stud running back, but he's pretty good. And as much as although Tom Brady checks down or James White is their receiving back, he does show promise as far as targets and receiving. And he can be an every down back. And I think the Patriots, and as far as they go, and they play in the AFC, what's that, East? It's the easiest division in the entire NFL, and I don't see either of the defenses. That's 6 games where Sony Michel can get off. He's a pretty good running back. I'm surprised you have Monte Freeman as high, although he played 2 games. That's a shock. But Sony Michel, I think he takes off next year. He had a good rookie year, and I'm sorry, I don't see how you got Devontae Freeman 13th.
Well,
Rookie year, he had 9 for almost 1,000 rushing yards, averaged 4.5 a carry. He also had those 6 touchdowns, which is very Ezekiel Elliott like. But um, although he only had 7 receptions for 50 yards, I do see him being a bigger part in the Patriots offense. And yeah,
see, I had to disagree with you there because we all know how Bill Belichick uses running backs to the point where they're not really trustworthy week to week. Now, I will say Sony Michel did have a good rookie season, but you have to look at why he had a good rookie season.
okay.
Rex Burkhead was hurt. Jeremy Hill hurt himself in the or during training camp. So that's 2 backs down right there. James White took over as the passing down running back, and then Sony Michel took off.
Okay, quick question.
Go ahead.
Be honest. Do you see Sony Michel? I'm sorry, Philip. I'm all over the place. Rex Burkhead being back to how his role was originally with the Patriots. I don't. I think Sony Michel comes their lead back, and when it's 3rd and 6, 3rd and 4, that's when James White will come in and do do James White. He'll get those passes, but I don't see anybody else taking those carries away from Sony Michel. I just don't.
Yeah, and I would agree with that logic if we were talking about another team. But when you look at the Patriots and you look at what they do with their running backs out of the backfield, it's still confusing. You would think with the way that Sonny Michel played, he should be the number 1 running back in for the Patriots.
Right.
But you'll be like, oh yeah, Sonny Michel could have a game one week where he scores 2 touchdowns. He has 98 yards rushing, 20 yards receiving. And then the next 2 weeks, we ain't heard from him because Rex Burkhead is getting the carries and James White is getting the carries and he's getting the targets. And now they just drafted Damian Harris during the 2019 draft. It's
But
like,
see,
where does he fit in?
one thing you forgetting though is you're not drafting Sony Michel in the first, second, third round, maybe. He is going to be that flex or your backup running back.
I don't know, man.
So as your flex or your backup running back, you telling me that he won't produce? I'm telling you, he will.
I think that he's going to go. He may go higher than you think because of the fact that when you start going down, when I start going down the rest of my list, you have a lot of guys that have upside, but they're injury prone. You're looking
Right.
at this point, you're looking at RB2s.
Right.
You should already have by the time you get to these guys, you should already have either your number 1 running back or your number 1 wide receiver, and you should be coming around and getting your new number 1 running back. Well, as we go through this list, you'll see, especially when we get closer to the second half of this list, you'll see, well, particularly mine, Sony Michel. I think you're right. I think you're right in the fact that he can be a big piece in that rushing attack for the Patriots. The problem is that you can't trust Bill Belichick week to week as far as running backs. I've tried it through a few years of fantasy. I've managed to hit maybe once with James White last season, and that was via trade. So he's he's Bill Belichick just makes it too unpredictable to rely on drafting a running back like Sony Michel. If I could, like I agree with what you said too. If I can get him as a flex, that's golden. but I don't think that you're going to be able to
Exactly.
get him as a flex, especially in a 12-team league.
All right.
Okay,
Well, hopefully Bill don't mess this up. I mean, I definitely think he is a running back. I don't think he has a Zeke or Saquon potential. I think he has James Conner potential. I mean, if Bill Belichick uses him the correct way.
I can agree with that. All right, let's keep going. At 14, I have Damian Williams from Kansas City.
Hmm.
Now, I really like Damian Williams. The problem is his ADP is too freaking high. Like, and the reason I say that, well, I felt this way prior to the news that the Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator came out and said, you know what, Williams is our starter because there was a lot of speculation about how Williams would be used.
Right.
Uh, you had Carlos Hyde coming in. They have a 6th round draft pick running back that they have back there. I can't remember his name, but it seems like it's a little crowded. But for the offensive coordinator to come out and say, yo, you know what? Don't worry about all that. Williams is our starter. And I think that if he gets those snaps that a starter would get, the potential for him to excel in an offense that is so dynamic with Patrick Mahomes back there,
Right.
it looks really good on paper. The only problem I see is the lack of wide receivers impacting the run game because we don't know what's going to happen with Tariq Hill yet. Nicole Hartman, the wide
Hmm.
receiver that they drafted this year,
Yeah.
everybody's trying to put him in the Tariq Hill role. Like he's going to be, it's hard for rookie wide receivers to come in and just take over. And you're expecting him to replicate Tariq Hill. I don't think that that's possible.
Right.
And then you got Sammy Watkins on the other side who can't stay healthy, and he hasn't done anything since his fantastic year in with the Buffalo Bills. So your wide receiver core looks kind of dank. That's my only concern, but we'll see as the offseason goes on, what will happen with Tariq Hill. I think like I said, if Damian Williams can get them carries, he's going to be a problem. He's got that speed. He looks like watching a few games. I actually thought like at some point it was Tariq Hill getting the ball out of the backfield. He was moving that fast.
Right. He is
Um,
fast.
yeah, and he had 6 touchdowns last season in 5 games. That's pretty good. And if you
Hmm.
can get that kind of production out of him over a 16-game season, he's going to be fantastic. He can catch out of the backfield. He can run between the tackles, and he's so fast that once he gets that one cut and go, he's going to burn by most linebackers. And another high point I found, doing a little background on him is that he had a 95.8% catch rate through those 5 games last season. And you
Wow.
know how much Andy Reid loves pass catching running backs.
Yep.
So I think that plays into his favor of being usage, as opposed to a Carlos Hyde, who's not, who hasn't really been used as a pass catching back. He's more of a ground and pound guy, but he's had durability issues of his own the last couple of seasons as well. So I think Damian Williams could take over for Kareem Hunt. He may not be Kareem Hunt on the ground, because of how well Kareem Hunt was for the Kansas City Chiefs, but I think the drop off will be less significant than people realize.
Okay. So now this one is a reach. Okay.
Hmm.
This for what will be 13,
This is 14.
14. I got Dalvin Cook.
All right,
Um,
I like that.
it's not a bad pick per se, but I know he's been dealing with injuries. But I think this year, Kirk Cousins, he still is there. And if they would have, I think if they would have had a running back like Dalvin Cook, if they turn him into a bell cow, I think they'll be a little better. He runs well, almost 5 yards a carry. Although he only had 615 yards, like I said, he was injured. Only 2 touchdowns. not great either. But one thing I look at as well, he had 49 targets, and out of those 49 targets, he caught 40 of them. 40 of them. 81.6 catch percentage, 305 yards in the air. I think for your flex spot, Alvin Cook he may be he may be exactly what you need in that role. Again, not ranked too high, not ranked too low. I think 14 is perfect for Dalvin, but I also need to see offense as well. I mean, the Vikings last year were a huge disappointment. But what else do you expect from a Kirk Cousins led team? But I definitely think he needs a running back to make him look a little better. And I think next year, Dalvin Cook being healthy, he can maybe take that next step. Because I think if he would have played those 5 games in the season, he may have had 1,000 yards. Touchdowns, you definitely would like to see go up because we had that big argument on Twitter as well. But as far as scoring, I need to see that go up. But I definitely do think with him being healthy, that will take them to the next step. With him being the bell cow, though, he has to be, or at least he has to try to be what Adrian Peterson was for the Vikings. Not saying he is going to be there, but he needs to try. At least they gotta try to figure out a way to utilize him best. But I do think he will have a big year this year, being healthy.
I have to agree that it's a reach because of his injury history. And the other thing you have to worry about is he can be used. They're trying to use him as a bell cow. The problem is his body can't handle it.
Right,
15 games in 2 seasons is not good at all. So he needs to stay healthy. I really believe that the potential is there for him to have a good year, but if his body can't handle it through a 16 game season, then all that talent doesn't do any good when you're on the
right,
sidelines. And I think that's why they drafted Alexander Madison because they know if any event that he goes down, they don't want to put no name guys or guys that they don't really have faith in to try and carry the run game for the rest of the season.
right.
So they went and drafted Alexander Madison. He looks like he could be the type of back that could come in and maybe not miss a beat, maybe as far as the running game, because I think Dalvin is a better pass catcher than Madison, but Dalvin just has to stay healthy. And
That's the and that's the crazy thing is it's just health. Usually, when you're dealing with a running back like Dalvin, or usually we deal with a running back who gets hurt. We just talking about Devontae Freeman. Usually, it's other issues with him. It's strictly health because when he plays, you see how good he could be. But like you said, all that talent don't matter if he can't stay healthy. So of course, this list is based on everybody being healthy, which he is supposed to be. So if he is healthy, I'm looking at a big year.
yeah, I agree. I mean, you're not going to be able to base rankings off, you have to, everything has to influence your rankings.
Right.
That's why ours is totally different you know, than each other.
And then you
It's not going to be the same.
right, and then you also looking at the Vikings receiving core, which takes so much pressure off of takes so many people out of that box. He he has this has to be a big year for him. If not, I suggest that the Vikings let him go. That's the only way I see it. But
Yeah,
this has to be a big year for him. He's in a perfect situation.
yeah, he is. You got one of the best wide receiver tandems for the team. Kirk Cousins is decent. He can carry an offense. He just gotta grow some cojones
Yep,
on those primetime games.
yep.
But
But he's in a perfect situation where they specialize at throwing the ball.
and I agree with you. If I have Dalvin Cook as he's on my personal list. Like if I draft him, I have a strategy prepared. So if I draft Dalvin Cook, I'm definitely coming around
Don't
and I'm
tell your
getting Alexander.
strategy. Don't tell. Nah,
It
nah,
doesn't
nah, nah,
matter.
nah. I cut him off.
Listen,
I cut him
listen,
off, fellas.
listen. We're already in the same league. I talk fantasy football a lot. It doesn't even matter because I have one or two ways. You can't stop me. I have one or two ways. If I get Dalvin Cook, I'm either going to draft running back heavy or I'm going to come around and get Alexander Madison. If you're going to take Alexander Madison, you better hope your team is stacked because you could end up, that could have ended up being a piece that you could have used to get somebody else. If you don't play, I don't draft to try and block people. That's not a good move. I play to build the best team that I can.
Right.
So, but let's keep going.
Yep.
Number 15. Now I have Derrick Henry at number 15.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
This might seem like it's a little high, but I think that the Titans organization is finally coming around to the fact that they need to get him the ball more, especially after that 5-game stretch that he had last year where he was just running over almost everybody. Like, did you see what he did to Jacksonville last year?
Yeah, Derrick Henry, that game against the Jaguars was just ridiculous. He had 17 carries for 238 yards, and he averaged 14 yards a carry. Dude was a freaking monster. And to score 4 touchdowns on one of the supposedly best defenses, I mean, they weren't that good last year, but now this offseason, they've gotten that wake up call, and I think that they're genuinely going to give Derrick Henry the ball. And if they do, if they give him those carries that he got the last 5 weeks of 2018, and he gets those all season or something close to that, he could really be that guy to maybe crack the top 10. The only problem I have, they don't use him enough in the passing game, and because they have Dion Lewis will be that change of pace guy for Derrick Henry.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean, that was it.
I was expecting you to keep going.
No, I said my piece on Derrick Henry. That's why I have him ranked at 15. You know, he could, if he could get into the passing game, he would be a little higher. But like I said, they have Deion Lewis there, so it kind of they're still gonna split the carries somewhat. But I think this season Derrick Henry will get more of a share in those carries. He may not get enough work in the passing game to legitimately be a top 10, but he's definitely top 20. And I think getting him as your RB2, that should put him in a place where he should get enough work to be valuable.
Okay. So for my number 15, I have Kerryon Johnson.
Ooh.
He showed you talking about flashes. He showed some great flashes last season. I know, obviously he was a rookie. He finished with 641 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. Now, if you're just listening to the numbers, that don't sound that great. But when you look kind of like midway, or when you start looking at the games, he had a big game against the Dolphins, another solid game against the Panthers. But what he shows is that he definitely is a workhorse. I think going into this season, no more Golden Tate, Matthew Stafford. The Lions pretty much are the same. I do expect him to get a lot more carries this season, and he showed that he could be really productive when the ball is in his hands. So I would use that. That's definitely a sleeper that that I would use going into next season, because if you get him and the Lions schedule, if you look at the Lions schedule next season, their schedule is sweet. I'm expecting him to, let's say, I'll go around 900 yards and give me maybe 7 touchdowns. I'm not going to go all crazy with that, but I do think that's realistic in what he was able to do last year in that amount of time.
And you know what? I actually like Kerryon Johnson. The only thing that concerns me is that they're going to run the ball, but they have C.J. Anderson there. You have
Yep.
I can't remember the passing down back they always use. You got Zach Zenner. They're deep at running back. My only concern is that they're really going to try and turn it into a committee because Matt Patricia just they're conflicting because Matt Patricia came out and said, we're going to take it easy on Kerryon. We're not going to overload him and blah, blah, blah. And that was like kind of a damper in the beginning of the offseason. Then the offensive coordinator came out and said, you know what, we're going to be a running team. We're going to run the ball. So
Right.
generally you think that, hey, well, if the offensive coordinator says they're going to run the ball, that's big numbers for Carrion because he just got there. He's the best running back that they have, and it would make sense for them to use him in that.
Exactly.
Even if you're going to use C.J. Anderson too, he should
Well,
be.
I look at C.J. Anderson more as the running back you put in when he's the second or third string running back. He's not a starter in the NFL anymore. And with that being said, I do expect Carrion to maybe get one. I expect Carrion or C.J. Anderson to be a third down back, and Carrion, he'll get time to catch his breath in that offense. He'll get time to come back in and run. I just think if this like you said, if they use Carrion more, I think it could be a real good pick, especially for fantasy.
I got you.
And as much as the Lions throw the ball, that opens up a lot for runs, play actions. He's not too bad in the backfield as far as catching. He got nothing but potential in that lineup. So
I was a little sour on him in the beginning of the offseason, but everything is in flux until you get to like deep into training camp and
Right.
preseason starts. So I could see taking him in a couple of leagues. Nothing crazy, but just to test the waters and see where he's at.
right, and if you could get him as a bench, you don't even have to use him as his flex. But if you could get him as a bench running back, he'll give you some pretty solid numbers. I think he also averaged about 5.5 rushing yards per attempt. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. Look at
He
you.
got great ball carrier vision. I expect big things.
All right. Let's keep it going. At 16, I have Aaron Jones. Now,
Wow.
I want to put him higher. He just does so much in the Green Bay Packers offense. When you have a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers and you have the wide receiver weapons that they have, they're going to give Geronimo Allison another look. They got Mark. I can't say his name, but it's like his initials are MVS. It's like Marquez Vantling Scatling or something like crazy. But he's one of the wide receivers, who they picked up last season during the draft. Aaron Rodgers, and they got Jimmy Graham, who I think is going to be better this year than he was. We'll talk about tight ends in another episode. But Aaron Jones is the running back for the Green Bay Packers. It just seems like the front office of the Packers just don't get it. And when you look at what he does on the field, he averaged 5 yards, five and a half yards a carry, 2 seasons in a row. The only knock against Aaron Jones is that he gets hurt. He only played 12 games last year. He played 12 games in 2017. So I kind of get why they want to do a running back by committee. But when you compare Aaron Jones to Jamal Williams, they just don't they don't compare. Aaron Jones is way better than Jamal Williams. And he's good in the passing game. The only other knock that folks may have on Aaron Jones is that he's a little suspect in pass protection,
Right.
but that's something that you can work on. If he can continue to work at that one small thing, the sky's the limit in that kind of offense. And on top of that, Aaron Rodgers was practically begging for him to get more snaps last year. You got one of the best quarterbacks in the league vouching for you. That's everybody want to blame Aaron Rodgers for getting Mike McCarthy fired, but Mike McCarthy was a moron for not even using Aaron Jones as much as he could have earlier on in the season last year.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't had Green Bay Packers haven't had a run game in forever, but now they got a guy in a versatile running back in Aaron Jones, and it's like, oh no, we're gonna stick him in a running back by committee with Jamal Williams. Like, come on, man.
Right. Well, what we on 16, right?
Yep.
Okay. My 16, you might like this. I got Josh Jacobs.
Ooh, okay.
Josh Jacobs with the Raiders. Of course, this has something huge to do with Antonio Brown being there. I feel like the Raiders will take a step forward. I think they'll be more so like the Steelers, how it was with Big Ben, Antonio Le'Veon. I'm not saying he will be Le'Veon, but having that threat in the backfield with Josh Jacobs and also the injury. So, he's going to be starting now. The Raiders also signed Trent Brown, offensive tackle, he's beefs up their offensive line also with Devy, Jordan Devy. Now, when you look into Josh Jacobs' college years, they are not spectacular, but he does produce. In his first year, he had 567 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns, but he averaged almost 7 yards a carry. The next year, I believe he was uh, I believe he was hurt his sophomore year. He only played 11 games, and out of those 11 games, he did also average 6.2. And then his last year, his junior year, put up 640 yards, averaging 5.3 with 11 touchdowns, and also had 247 yards passing as well, with an average of 12 yards. So I think bringing that to the Raiders, I think that offense will take a huge leap. I think that offense will go sky high, and then he'll be in the same position that Le'Veon was in with the Steelers. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a little bit of a reach, but who got injured? Will for the Raiders?
Isaiah Crowell.
Yeah, Crowell. I always forget this dude. Ain't nothing special, but he got hurt.
Cold
Josh,
blooded.
Josh Jacobs definitely is going to be starting, and I'm looking for a pretty good year. If you actually get Josh Jacobs, I would go as far as starting him. That's how much potential he may have with that Raiders team. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you look at the roster and the depth chart for the Raiders, there's nobody really behind him except for Doug Martin. And, Doug Martin wasn't nothing to write home about last season. That's why they went out and drafted Josh Jacobs.
Right, and
So,
I actually was going to put him in my top 10, but he's a rookie. I didn't want, what I'm saying, I didn't want to put him in the top 10 with nothing to show for it, so I had to put him down a little bit more.
yeah, that would have been a little hot takey-ish to do that. I'll say that would have been gutsy to say the least to put him in your top 10.
Right, exactly. Okay, so moving on.
Okay, now we already touched on this a little bit before, so I won't get into it too much. But like I said, I had Dalvin Cook at 17, and it's pretty plain and obvious to see why I have him ranked low. I I like Dalvin Cook, and I think he has the upside to do big numbers in the Vikings offense. But when you can't stay healthy, that's a big knock. That's a big knock to me because if I'm drafting a running back and he can't stay healthy, he's only played 15 games in 2 seasons. That's a cause for concern for me because I'm spending at least a second or third round pick. When I'm looking to build my fantasy team, I'm not willing to spend a top 3 pick on a guy who can't stay on the field. That just is just going to come back and bite you. If I can get him as a flex, or I draft a running back,
Mm-hmm.
or I go back to back with running back picks, that'll make me feel more comfortable because now I know if Dalvin Cook goes down, I got depth. So that's something that I always look into. He's got he averaged 4.7 yards per carry while he was on the field. But like I said, he can't stay on the field is kind of a knock. That's why I have him at 17.
That's the good thing about these rankings is y'all get to see two different angles. But for my 17th pick, I have Devontae Freeman, who I believe was injured all of yet. Yeah, I would say he was injured almost all of last year. But it's hard to knock the production that he has had outside of last year. The only reason I have him as low was because of the injury. But when you look at the Falcons, they hardly have made any changes, and they were in desperate need of a running back last year. And I think with him being back and healthy, uh, he'll go back to that 2016, 2017 Freeman that we've seen before. 16 had almost 1,100 rushing yards with 11 touchdowns. And then the year before that, he had 865 with 7 touchdowns. So if he's healthy, I'm looking at that production going right back up where it was.
Last year was more of an anomaly for Devontae Freeman. but they're saying, reports are saying he's ready to go for camp, and man, to have him at 17, when you look at the backfield there, Ito Smith is not someone that I feel threatened, when it comes to shares for the running backs in
Right.
Atlanta. Ito didn't really do much to be like, oh man, Devontae Freeman better watch out. So I think Devontae he's got the backfield to himself for the most part.
Exactly.
If he goes down again, then you might be looking at Ito Smith to carry the load. But I think it's all Freeman. And with Dirk Cutter as the new offensive coordinator, well, he was their offensive coordinator before. Now he's back there and he likes to pass the ball. I think Freeman will be more involved in the passing game this season, so that adds to his value. I couldn't put him that far down my list like you did.
Who?
You did. I got Devontae Freeman at 13. You got him at 17.
Well, but I mean, who I had it, I got Sony Michelle at 13, and that makes more sense. I'm just saying.
Okay, but let's keep going. At 18, I have Leonard Fournette. Now, you have Leonard Fournette ranked a little higher. Where did you have him ranked again?
I had Leonard Fournette ranked at 12.
Okay. Yeah. As much as I like the ability of Leonard Fournette, between him being hurt and him being a bonehead,
No,
I
yeah, that's a
can't.
big problem. The boneheadedness.
I can't. Yeah, I can't have him that high. He's one of those guys that if he falls in the draft because of people are leery of picking him up because of what happened last year, I might take a stab at him, but he's got to be my third running back. And the likelihood of that happening is a little rare because of where he's being drafted at. He's going probably at the end of the second, mid third round.
Right.
If he slides to like the fourth, I might come back around and creep him, depending on what league I'm in. But Leonard Fournette, his production is there. You know what he can do. He can be an asset in the passing game. Nick Foles being there should ward off guys from loading the box on the Jaguars. But those he went down with a hamstring, and when he went down, it's not like from what you could tell, it looked like he just fell over. That's concerning to me. If that's all it took to take him out for as much time as he missed last season, I don't want him.
Right.
But
injuries are
you can't.
that's a freak accident.
That's true. But you have to factor some of that in because everybody's not going to be hurt in the beginning of the season and then until they are.
Right.
When you look at running backs, you look at how durable they are. You look at how many games they've missed, and then you kind of gauge that factor into their value. I'm not saying that Leonard Fournette is not a good running back. He could be a top. He could definitely be a top 10 running back. But when you have that cloud of injury hovering over you that can strike at any moment, compared to a guy like Ezekiel Elliott, your Saquon Barkley's, your David. Now David Johnson could be considered that way too, but his wrist injury was just that.
Right.
You know what I mean? He never popped a hammy. He didn't break his foot. None of that stuff. So he's not. David Johnson is not considered an injury risk. Leonard Fournette is. But like I said, you can't deny the talent that he has. It's just more riskier to draft him for where his price is.
Okay. I mean, it's hard for me to agree with you only because where I got Leonard Fournette ranked. So
yeah, you're crazy on that one.
I wouldn't say crazy, but I had good reasoning of why I had him that high. So I can't. It's hard for me to disagree with you. You make valid points, but I got.
As I normally do.
Well, I'm pretty sure the people who've been listening to the other podcasts know that's not true. But all right. So for my 18th, I have Chris Carson.
Okay.
He had a real good year last year. He did miss 2 games, but he did in the year with 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns, and a 4.7 average. And as much as the Seahawks run the ball, I'm expecting him to do the same thing, the same exact thing. And then I believe also with Rashad Penny,
Mm-hmm.
he'll take some of the workload off of him as well. But that year he had last year was phenomenal, and he proved that he could be that type of back. The only reason why I don't have him as high as I do is because it's only 1 year, that he obviously played that well. The first year he played, although he only played 4 games, it, he didn't look as good as he did last year. So he definitely improved. The first year, I believe he had like 208 rushing yards, but like I said, he missed darn near the whole season. But I gotta be proven, or I gotta show, or be proven more that he could continue to do that. But it should be easy for him in that Seahawks offense where they handcuff Russell Wilson so much. So 18th is where he sits.
I actually like that. Depending on who you got your next two, that's actually a pretty good
My
spot
next
for
two are definitely not moving. So I don't care how much hype they get throughout the next couple of weeks, they're staying in the same spot.
Are you being stubborn?
Yeah, I'm being stubborn.
All right, I like that Chris Carson. I have him ranked a little lower, but we'll get into why I have him ranked a little lower. Let's keep going to 19.
Okay.
At 19, I have Kenyon Drake.
Oh my! Wait,
Now,
wait, wait! Can you stop right there? I have him at 19 as well. So I'm pretty sure
what?
anything you about to say, we both feel the same way. So go ahead. I'll let you start, and I'll piggyback off of it.
All right, all right. Great minds think alike for a change. But I, I like Kenyon Drake at 19. I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. You don't have Adam Gase messing around with the running back rotation
Mm.
there. You don't have him favoring carries to Frank Gore anymore. Frank Gore is in Buffalo. They got that whole mess up there. They can deal with that. You only have Kenyon Drake and Kalen Balaj there as your 1 and 2 running
Mm-hmm.
backs. And Drake proved last season that he should be the bell cow for Miami. He averaged 4.5 yards per carry on only 120 carries. That's how much they was yanking him around, and he didn't get hurt last season. He was just not being used. 9 yards of reception last year. He had 9 touchdowns over total. Like he was producing last year. For whatever reason, they decided that we're going to give the ball to Frank. We're going to give it a little bit to Kenyon Drake, and then we're going to give a little bit to you can't when your passing offense is as skittish as it was last year. Running the ball should be the next best thing you should be doing, and they refuse to give it to one running back. I don't like, and you may not know this, but I hate running back by committees. They are the dumbest thing that has been introduced to the NFL. Now, I will say some of them
Ooh, shots fired, Eagles.
don't even get me started on them because I think they're dumb too. You have Miles Sanders, who's better than I think he's better than Jordan Howard. He's a better pass catcher than Corey Clement. Even though the guy is young and he's a rookie, you have one of the best offensive lines in Philadelphia. You have one of the best passing attacks with all those wide receivers that they have and tight ends. And you got Carson Wentz there who just got broke off. You mean to tell me Miles Sanders can't succeed as the bell cow in that offense? Come on, man.
Well, I would say it's easy for us to say because we got Zeke. So there is no running back by committee. But we should have had a running back by committee if you want to be honest. Um
What? Why?
no. I'm talking about, or I guess that's where it works sometimes because we needed that production when Zeke was suspended.
You mean you needed a backup?
Or well yeah, we need a backup. And with the running back by what that does is you have options. You always have options. So I mean it's a win lose. Like, it's 50-50.
See, the only thing about that is they had to go to a committee last year. I mean, 2017 when Zeke was suspended. They had Rod Smith and Alfred Morris, and they were averaging over 100 something yards a game.
Right.
It wasn't the fact that that committee wasn't working. It's the fact that the passing offense was stagnant. And this goes back to, and I'm not going to get heavy into this Dallas Cowboy passing thing, 2017. The passing offense was bad, and because there was no attempt to be creative and add something to it, then it didn't work. So because you're running, you can't run the ball all game when you're behind. It doesn't work that way. That's why they lost 3 games. That's why they couldn't come back against the Eagles. That's why they got smoked against the Chargers, and why they got manhandled in Atlanta. You can run the game, and they were running the game pretty. They were running the ball pretty well in some of those games, but a running back by committee that should only be used when your starting running back goes down, and you need the other 2 guys or however many guys you use after that to help you. And that's why I think Kenyon Drake is going to succeed this year. He's quietly going to have a good season because now you don't have to worry about him getting shuffled in and out. And even if they do incorporate Kalen Blige a little bit more, Drake's already proved that he can be that guy that can get you those yards. He's a tough runner. He's more elusive than he gets credit for. And did you see that run he did against the New England Patriots at the end of the game?
I
That
did.
was
Yes.
sick.
No, but I mean that's a good play. I wouldn't put too much on it because of that play. But this is the reason I have him at 19. Like you said, he hasn't been used right, and you look through the games: 11 attempts, 6 attempts, 1, 6, 7, 8. At a certain point in time, you have to give him you have to give him some tick. You can't. I mean, I don't understand how you start and you get 6 carries a game.
That
That
Adams
that
should have been
that's
flat for that.
like that's unbelievable. So and like you said, he does show some great flashes sometimes, and I do believe, like you said, they need to use him right. And with Gase gone and down in New York, it's a perfect opportunity. And he, for the most part, is the back. So it was crazy. We both had him ranked 19. I think we both got this same person at 20, but I'm gonna go ahead and wait.
Nah, you already mentioned your guy at you got him ranked a little higher than I do. I have Chris Carson at 20.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The reason I got him at 20 is because it's not that he's going to have a bad year. I think he'll be fine. You already read off his numbers from last season. The Seattle Seahawks were ranked first in rushing last year with 534 attempts. He's going to be, if they continue to run the ball like they did last year, he's going to be fine. The only thing that concerns me is Rashad Penny. He has another
Right.
year in that system. He's going to be more comfortable. He's having a good, training camp, OTAs, whatever you want to call it. He's doing fine right now. And I believe Chris Carson is on the sidelines. He got a knee scope.
Mm-hmm.
So while he's recovering, Rashad Penny's getting all the starting snaps. And they did pick him in the first round 2 years ago. So there's a reason why they went out and grabbed him. But they're going to be splitting that workload for the most part in the season. So that kind of caps. I think that caps what Chris Carson can do. Even though they'll be running the ball a little bit more than the average NFL team.
Right. Okay. So for my 20, I have Jordan Howard.
What?
I do. And
Oh my goodness!
it's hard to argue his numbers. Now,
Really? Go ahead.
Okay, wait. Now, your that first list I sent you, remember, he wasn't even on the list.
Nope.
So I had to like good people do, I had to research. I had to see exactly why, some hype was surrounding him, and then I had to analyze his numbers. I had to look at everything.
You found hype for Jordan Howard?
Yeah, I mean, Twitter, and you know,
Yeah, because that's reliable.
it's a couple fantasy accounts that I follow, but
Okay.
nonetheless, 2016.
Wow.
I'm gonna give you all the years. I'm just
This time we got to go back. Way back.
2016, 1,300 rushing yards, 6 TDs, 5.2 carry average. 2017, 1,100, 4.1 carry average, 9 touchdowns. Last year, 935 yards with a 3.7 carry average and 9 touchdowns. But
Did you notice something in that while you
no,
was
no,
doing
no.
those
Now,
numbers?
exactly. If you pay attention to what I just said, each year the yards and the carrying average has dropped, right?
Who?
But who was the quarterback last year, Will?
Mitch.
And is Mitch is not a good quarterback, or from what we've seen last year, he's not a good quarterback. So the
Well,
same, so they stack the box. There's no
yeah.
way. Is there's no. I mean, outside of Jordan Howard, I think they have Allen Robinson. But if your quarterback can't throw the ball, what the heck? That's
Well, you got to be fair though. Mitch was coming in. Was that his second year last year? He's coming into a new offense with Adam Gase. No, not Adam Gase. No,
no.
the ball from the Kansas City Chiefs. He used to be their offensive coordinator. Now he's over there. I can't think of his name, but he's there now. He's installing a new offense. You know, it takes time to get down. He's not going to get it all in one season. He's going to get bits and pieces until he gets more comfortable in the offense, and then he can grow, and then they'll give him more to do. And
Mm-hmm.
then Allen Robinson got hurt. Trey Burton disappeared towards the end of the season, and they weren't really using Taylor Gabriel like that. So they got weapons on paper, but they didn't really use them.
Exactly. They got weapons on paper. So and the Chicago Bears made the playoffs last year, right? Now, just imagine if the Bears had a QB who was pretty good, pretty decent to go along with that defense, and or a QB that could take a little bit of pressure off of Jordan Howard. His numbers would be better. So if he, and as much as I hate to say this, he's going to a team like the Eagles with Carson Wentz, who you better not stack the box against. Jordan Howard is going to a team with a pretty good quarterback, and I hate to say that, but you know how I feel about Wentz. I don't dislike Wentz. He's a good quarterback, but he's
Mhm.
going to the Eagles where they have weapons on the offensive end. It's crazy. You have Alshon, you have Deshaun Jackson now, you have Aguilar, you have Ertz, got Dallas Goddard. You move into that with that offensive line with Jordan Howard. Now, the only thing is, like we were just talking about, was running back by committee, and the Eagles actually are the worst with their running backs. So if they trust in, just imagine the season, if they trust in Jordan Howard to be their number one, and with the production that I just mentioned, how do you fight against those numbers? If he could put up any one of those years, numbers wise, for the Eagles, that's a great pick. The only reason I have him down at 20 is because how Eagles use running backs. But at the same time, he's ranked based on if the Eagles snap out of it. Because if the Eagles were, if they're going to use him any different, then of course he would be higher. I would have put him higher on my list. I'm just saying. But those numbers are hard to argue against. Now, another reason why I have him at 20 is because he is not an option as far as passing from the backfield.
Nope.
If he
Oh,
is just
it's
not a catching back.
it's funny that you say passing because recent reports say that he's been working on his passing and catching ability. Like he did last year with Chicago, and we all saw how that worked out.
Right. Now,
I'm not falling for the cap this time.
I'm about to say, now, regardless, and this is why people outside of Eagles Nation, because Eagles Nation, if that's even a thing, they don't criticize Carson. Most of them don't.
Nope.
But times where he needs to check down, Jordan Jordan Howard's not an option. You might as well scratch that off the list. And that's another reason why I have him ranked as low as I do. If you need, if you're running a play, if you're running a screen or anything like that, you better put in Clement, better put in somebody else because Howard is not an option. But if he's just there to strictly run and Doug Peterson uses him like how the Bears have, then he looking at a pretty big year. And you possibly will be able to start him. Hopefully for us, though, he has a horrible year. But if we just being if we being objective, I just think he's moving into the perfect situation.
Look, only got one thing to say. Miles Sanders, week 8, he's the starter. Book it.
Really?
Better than Jordan Howard, and he's better than Corey Clement, and he's better than any other running back that they have on that roster. Give him the job. Let him spin. That's all I got to say about that.
Okay. I mean, Miles Sanders, he is going to be really good. If they had any sense, they probably. I mean, but another thing is though, Will, they got Jordan Howard basically for free.
Yeah, but he's
They
on a
got him for
1-year
free.
deal.
Yeah, but that's fine. They got him for free. So even if he don't work out, you still got that fall. You still got that lean back option on Miles Sanders. I'm just saying.
I like to have an eye on rookie running backs that have good potential in an offense that is really good. And like it or not, the Eagles' offense is really good. Miles Sanders can thrive in that offense. You don't need to run Jordan Howard ahead of Miles Sanders. Jordan Howard could be Miles Sanders' backup if something happens to him. And then you can go into your lovely committee. Do it that way.
Nah, Will.
Don't take away from Miles Sanders' value.
Nah, Will. I'm saying I don't see how a running back that has basically had 1,000 yards each year he played comes off the bench to a rookie. I mean, to me that don't make sense. That's like wait, let me put it in perspective. That's like us starting Mike Weber or Tony Pollard or whatever his name is.
Please don't finish that sentence.
And putting Zeke on the bench. Now I'm not comparing him to Zeke, but I'm saying almost every year Zeke has played, he has 1,000+ rushing yards.
But that's why you wouldn't do that. The two scenarios don't match.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
so you gotta start Jordan Howard. You gotta start him.
That's why I said week 8. Give him to midseason.
Well, hopefully he does not have a good season. So
he can have a good season after the Cowboys beat the Eagles. I'm fine with that. He can have a good game then. They still take the L. I'm fine with that.
No, but I kind of like this narrative that gets carried by Zeke because
we could talk about that.
Let me not finish. I don't even want to say.
Let's wrap it up. This will be the end of our episode for our running backs. We have listed 1 through 20. Please leave us a little note. Let us know what you think about our rankings. We are available on Google and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, Radio Public, and a couple of others.
So there's no reason for y'all not to listen.
Nope, we are almost everywhere, and we're still growing. So please leave us feedback wherever you can. Let us know what you liked about the podcast. Make sure to subscribe and share with your friends. And I think that's it. You got any other closing remarks you want to make?
I do. You said let us know if there's anything or the things that you do like about the podcast. Also, let us know the things you don't like about the podcast as well, so that way we know what to improve on and make it easier for you guys to listen in. What else would I like to say? Next episode should be really fun. We move into our top 10 receivers, so that should be fun. Looking forward to it.
I'm already working on that now. So
I'm already finished. So
I had to make some changes.
But
we'll catch you guys next episode. Yep. Thanks for listening. See you guys later.